Ni hao, it's Xingfu here, and today we are going to talk about a Chinese drama called Fate Chooses You, which stars Ren and Wang Ren. This video is going to be longer than usual because I have a lot to say, not just about the drama, but also about the other two dramas that take place in the same universe as Fate Chooses You. So I'm going to explain how these two dramas are connected to Fate Chooses You and in which order should you watch them. But I want to start talking about the story first. The story takes place years after the war between gods and demons. I would say less than 100 years after the war, because Shinmei is about 60 years old and she already witnessed the war. So Shinmei is an immortal who came down from the mountain to visit her aunt and also break a curse that she has. Apparently, she has to get married 3 times in order to get rid of that curse, and her grooms will eventually die. That's why she decided to find a death row criminal to marry. That way, she won't feel guilty when he dies because he was already bound to die. And this is where she meets Lu Huai, who is waiting for his execution. He was sentenced to death by 1,000 cuts. The two met up and eventually agreed on the marriage, and that's where things started picking up. I found the story a little fast-paced at the beginning, but in a good way because the story was simplified. The little background introduction at the beginning paved the way. So as a viewer, you immediately know the secret of Lu Huai when they start to mention death by 1,000 cuts. Shinmei also simplified her story when she explained her situation to Lu Huai. So in that case, they gave you the introduction and now you are enjoying the ride. It doesn't make you wonder about the future. You are just invested in the present moment. The marriage was the start of everything because after the wedding, things got heated up. Shinmei discovered that Lu Huai was framed and she sought revenge for him. She was a bride seeking revenge for her dead husband. So she ends up fighting with other immortals because she broke the rules of the immortals. She intervened with the affairs of mortals and now they want to bring her back to the set so that she can get punished. That entire chase made me feel like now I'm really watching a Chinese drama. It made me become a fan of Fate Chooses You. But here's the problem that I have with how Shinmei developed along the way. On the first episode, Shinmei was powerful. She was being chased by more than 5 immortals, and most of them were even more powerful than her because she was at the lowest power level. But she was still being portrayed as this strong, badass female lead. And this is the big problem regarding Shinmei. After she reunited with Lu Huai, who is now known as Lu Chenchao, she somehow became weak. She did manage to advance to other power levels, but it wasn't convincing because she was still portrayed as this weak character. The more her power levels got up was the weaker she became. She always got beaten up in almost every fight, and she was always injured. But on the first episodes, her power levels were low, and she still managed to fight people who were much stronger than her. She was being portrayed as this strong character. As you keep on watching the drama, you realize that she's getting weaker and weaker. And I honestly thought that this build of Shinmei at the beginning will lead to a point where she somehow unlocks a hidden, untapped power that she was struggling to unlock. But it never got there. I don't get the point of making Shinmei to look strong at the beginning and then you start to make her look weak as the story progresses until the end. It doesn't make sense. That is why I thought that maybe she had some untapped power because even at the beginning, when she was being chased by those immortals, some of them were even surprised that someone who is at her power level could manage to fight immortals who are at a higher power level. They were surprised. So it looked like they were going for that direction where maybe she has some untapped power because she even said that she doesn't progress when she trains. She doesn't pay attention when she's busy cultivating. So this is the problem that she has when she's training with her master. That is why she's not progressing. So it all seemed like they were building up this plot of a female lead who is at the lowest power level, but she has an untapped power hidden somewhere that she will eventually manage to unlock as the story progresses. But they didn't go for that direction. And it almost destroyed the Shinmei character because she wasn't that credible, even when her power levels advanced. And I know that some of you will say she was fighting stronger opponents when the story started to progress. And I agree. I also agree that most of the time she was fighting with injuries, but she was not the only one who was fighting stronger opponents. She was not the only one who was fighting while having injuries. Other characters were much weaker than her, but they were portrayed to be much stronger when facing strong opponents. I'll give you a perfect example. Lord of Rastsword wasn't an immortal. He wasn't even a cultivator. He was just a mortal. But he always survived against stronger opponents. He always managed to fight immortals who were much stronger than him. But he was still being portrayed as one of the strongest characters in the drama. But as for Shinmei, it was a very different story. She was losing battles even though she was an immortal, even though her power levels kept on advancing, but she was still weak. Another thing that was more interesting in the drama was the journey of Lu Huai to becoming a mortal. It was a 5-stage process that actually lowers his power levels after completing each stage, which made me wonder how will he defend himself in the future, because he was probably one of the strongest characters at the beginning. And as the story progresses, he will obviously meet much stronger opponents. While on the other side, Shinmei is getting weaker and weaker, so she won't be able to defend him. Then there was a plot of humans who wanted to find documents of Goddess Wuxuan, who ascended to the heavens to become the goddess of crafts. Goddess Wuxiang is worshipped by humans, and the human race is actually using her inventions to defend themselves and make their lives better, just like how we do with technology these days. That's where I started to see the connection between Fate Chooses You and other two Chinese dramas. But I'll tell you that soon. For now, I just want to talk about the ending of Fate Chooses You. Fate Chooses You has a happy ending, which is surprising because this is an Alan Rand drama. If you are a fan of Alan Rand, you obviously know that most of his dramas don't really end well. It's either he's going to die at the end or something will happen that will give us a sad ending. Plus, his journey to becoming immortal actually made me believe that he won't make it to the end. But I was wrong because we got a happy ending. At the end, we even got guest appearances from Liu Shui and Zhang Yecha. Even though we got a happy ending, I was quite disappointed, especially with the last fight. I mean, Lu Chenchao didn't even use both of his hands during that fight. I feel like they robbed us because after all those build up from the beginning of the drama until the very end, you get a 5-second fight between Lu Chenchao and the villain. But that fight is just one-sided. And on top of that, Lu Chenchao only showed up after most of the immortals and the bad guys fought each other. So it didn't really make sense to come up with a boss level entrance only to give us a 5-second fight. And I do understand that they wanted to show off the power of a perfect war demon, but they could have done something else to show off those powers. Because for Lu Chenchao, fighting that villain, it wasn't a real challenge to him. But as viewers, we wanted something. We wanted the villain to be powerful enough to challenge Lu Chenchao. If the main villain, the final villain, is not able to challenge Lu Chenchao, what's the point of having this build up and having Lu Chenchao to become a perfect war demon just to fight this guy who is not even presented as a threat to Lu Chenchao? It was pointless. I even found the last episode very unnecessary because there was nothing left to say. All those things that were happening in the last episode, they could have summarized them in the previous episode and let the story end once and for all. but they decided to keep up with the 40 episodes mark and give us an unnecessary episode, which was a waste of time, in my own opinion. Now, let's talk about the connection between Fate Chooses You and other two Chinese dramas. When I was watching Fate Chooses You, I started hearing people mentioning Goddess Wuxua. I instantly knew that there was a connection between Fate Chooses You and A Moment But Forever. Then there was a scene where they showed a ship that was in the desert and they talked about how it got there. So I thought Fate Chooses You is the sequel to A Moment But Forever, only to find out it was quite the opposite. So here's the connection between these dramas. In both dramas, they mentioned the war between gods and demons. This was the war where war demons, who are Lu Chenchao's 10 members, got wiped out. And Yuan Zhong from A Moment But Forever was responsible for that. He was also the one who gave the immortal sect the seed of the divine tree, but he wasn't really involved in Fate Chooses You. In both dramas, the ladder that connected the mortal world and the divine world is broken, which means that gods cannot come down to the mortal world, and the mortals or cultivators or immortals cannot become gods or go to heaven or the divine realm or the divine world, as you know. So this means that others who swung from A Moment But Forever wasn't in heaven when the ladder that connected the mortal world and the divine world broke. She was in the mortal world. So everything that happened during Fate Chooses You, it happened while Goddess Wu Xuan was in the mortal world. Because those who are in the divine realm or in the heavens cannot come to the mortal world. And those who are on the mortal world cannot go to the divine realm because the ladder is broken. So Goddess Wu Xuan is in the mortal world, but she hasn't found Yuan Zhong at the moment. She's still busy doing her business while everything happens in Fate Chooses You, because she cannot go back to the divine realm, which is why in A Moment But Forever, Goddess Wushuang uses her spirit to go to the divine realm or to the heavens to speak with other gods, just like how Shinmei did when she went to the heavens to cancel the curse of the war demons. She used her spirit to go to the divine realm or to the heavens. These two dramas are also connected to another drama called Love of Thousand Years, which stars Zhang Yichang and Zhao Lucy. Zhang Yichang appeared in Fate Chooses You, and he also appeared in A Moment But Forever as Yuan Zhong's friend. On Fate Chooses You, Yuan Zhong comes across Shin Mei. He is still wearing that necklace that controlled his powers. And he also mentioned that he recently came out of seclusion. Not to forget that he also asked Shin whether she saw a goddess in the divine realm. He doesn't know her face, he doesn't even know her name, which means that Yuan Zhong has not met Goddess Wuxian yet. He was still at the early stage of his plot to destroy the entire world. That's why he even hinted that he was the one who gave Li Mofu the seed of the divine tree. And his plans were ruined by Lu Chenchao, Xinmei, and their friends when they stopped Li Mofu from growing the divine tree. Now he just advises Xinmei to take Lu Chenchao far away because he doesn't want him to ruin his plans once again, especially now since he is a perfect war demon, so he will be a huge problem. Another hint that I noticed was when Yuan Zhong said something about Lu Chenchao being controlled by a woman, and his right-hand man said, maybe one day you will also meet someone who will keep you in control. All of these things prove that Fate Chooses You comes first. Then A Moment But Forever comes second, which is followed by Love of Thousand Years. I don't remember much about Love of Thousand Years because it is an old drama. It's been about 4 or 5 years since I watched it, so I don't remember much about it. I don't even remember the ending. One thing that I remember though is it wasn't good and it was also not that bad. Anyways, that's the connection between the three dramas. I'm actually tempted to complete A Moment But Forever because I dropped it around episode 24 or 23. I'm not sure. But I think I'll take my time and rewatch it again. With that being said, I'm giving Fate Chooses You a rating of 8.5 out of 10. This is probably my second favorite Chinese drama for 2026, and I highly recommend it. That was my review on Fate Chooses You. Let me know what you think about the drama in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Until next time, 再见.